Wow, I guess I'm live. Okay, well, anyway, so I'm so glad that I made it out to the cranial bodega where they're being stored so that I could test the flowers today. I posted some stuff live on Instagram, and you can find it on my Facebook page as well. But anyway, as you know, I spent a significant amount of time creating all these different painted circles. And the metaphor here for me in transmutation is about the cellular level of things, but also the circle represents uh, cycles and how things return, things we need to learn that keep returning over and over again. And then they set into these flowers, which today I was able to test the scale on the actual skull. And you can see some photos on Instagram or Facebook. And I'll add it to my webpage as well with this video. So it's exciting because the scale of the circles are good. So it looks like if I do 8 circles, which I have about 20, so that'll allow me to edit a little bit, but I can take these circles. I need to make the flowers a little bit smaller, and then I keep coming back to it, and I just don't know how I'm going to address the overall surface because, of course, there's the ideal that I could prime it and just give it a background color, and I like the ideal, but it just feels a little overly simplistic, and it just the way I work, the complexity of the things that I do, the layering that I like, I feel like I need a little bit more. So I was, there just kind of looking at the paper, and I'd had this ideal before because when I tear the paper, I get these beautiful strips of color. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the lighting well enough for you to see that. Okay, so these colors, these strips that come from the tearing of the paper and the different images that are on the other side of them, it builds up, and when you tear it into strips, you can get all these beautiful line qualities, and then when you saturate it with varnish, it pulls the ink from the other side, and it's quite a robust experience. You could see it in some of my other work in the photographs, the process of deconstruction of the paper that I do, that gets me to the circles that I'm using. All those images are posted in Instagram. So from the process so far, there's 149 images edited down from about 1,800 images. I'll have all those available for sale as prints, but I'm trying to think about how I want to treat the overall skull, and I had this idea with these lines to just do strips of them and have them form a pattern from the top of the cranial that comes down, and then I would set a larger flower with these flowers. Now I can create them with dimensionality, so I can pull these up and then use the acrylic varnish or the heavier varnish and form them into shapes, and they'll set into those shapes. There's going to be the concern that people are going to, think it's an opportunity to pull a piece of it away, and of course that's the history of it. It's on the streets of Mexico City on the main Reforma, and so it's possible. But I really would like the metaphor to develop a little bit more and have the sense of this entry point above the head for all this energy that's coming with transmutation. So, just with the way the last 3 weeks has been going, very complicated. I'm for sure that hashtag Kill the Gringo is a real thing. Mexico is challenging me in ways that I don't challenge in the United States, but apparently there's something I need to learn in the process of the transmutation. So we just keep trying to make sure that we're open to the lessons that we're being taught. So yesterday when I was doing my video interview with Mexicanos, they asked me to do some drawing so they could capture me, in a sense, working. And so the lines that I had created on the first flower, I looked at it after the fact and I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it. I like the I like the effect of it in terms of stained glass. I don't like that I drew the circle where the painted piece is going to be, because then it, attaches you to a specific, you can't move it, it has to match perfectly, and if you change the painting. But then also, I think it kind of diminished the abstraction. So I'm curious about, once I get the paper onto the skull, the background paper, which will be the, the backside of the paper in strips that I was showing you a moment ago. So once I get this applied, and I'm going to go do that tomorrow and spend several hours applying, then I'll be able to lay the flower back over the top of it again, this one with the lines and the other ones without the lines. When I was doing the interview, I was just doing some light drawing on this one, and you could see I just separated out some of the pieces of paper here, and I kind of like it in the lighter form. So we'll see. I mean, this is a developing process. It takes some time to make sure the ideal is going to work. And then since I'm working in my studio, and last week I was working in Chamal in the state of Mexico with the flowers, I had to go and apply it and see if it was going to look good. And I took a whole bunch of different pieces with me and had some ideas for different things. And in the end, I just sort of ended up feeling, that the ideal has to simplify, to communicate, and it has to be compelling enough that you want to approach it. And so I think I'm really moving in the right direction. Once I get the surface texture down onto the skull, I'll be able to go in and start applying the flowers, and I can develop the rest of the flowers here in the studio, and make progress. So I'm a little less than, I have 3 weeks basically to finish this. I haven't seen the medium or the small skulls, but the deadline for that is a little bit different now. So that's good. The project, which seemed like it should have only been a month, is now in 2.5 months. Half of that probably hurry up and wait. And, that's the way things kind of work here in Mexico. So I'm not really surprised about it. But, so far, the time of the process, which is longer than I thought, has given me the ability to really reflect on my ideal and how it's going to form, because to go from something 2-dimensional like this into a 3-dimensional form, and then have to consider the context of it being in the streets of Mexico City, that it needs to be visual, crisp enough visually that it stands out from the environment, but I also want to make sure that it references the whole cycle of the process, which is in the streets, tearing the paper off the walls, right, and forming those compositions, narrowing it down into a specific composition, but also, I want all that energy and life force put into it. So the simplicity of the flowers alone with just some stem work it's not going to work for what I'm doing. I have the picture in my mind. I want to put it down on paper, but the ideal is in my mind. And right now, I don't know if it's a good use of my time to go into Photoshop and try to apply all this texture and stuff to see what it's going to look like, because I know that when I get to the skull and I start doing it and I pull the paper from the bag and start working with it, it's going to tell me what it needs to do. And that's one of the lessons that I've learned in my artistic practice is that you can go in with all the ideals mapped out and everything that you want to, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to respond to the materials, because this is very experimental. It takes time. So anyway, I'm super excited, and hopefully this video came out well enough and that it was engaging enough that you would want to come back and look at another one.